Hi, I'm Liv,
And I'm Brit.
and this is the Reclaimed Motherhood podcast.
This podcast is about coming back home to ourselves as women and as mothers.
We're here for the honest conversations, the ones about intuition, fertility, birth, parenting, relationships, holistic health, and the many seasons of womanhood that shape us.
We'll be sharing our own lived experiences, the things that we've questioned, unlearned, and reclaimed, so you feel encouraged to trust your body, your instincts, and your own inner knowing.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Reclaimed Motherhood podcast. Last week, we spent some time chatting about female fertility and optimizing your health when you're trying to conceive, or even if you just want to be healthier in general. And we mentioned that we're going to have a special guest on with us this week. So I'm going to give it to Britt so she can introduce him.
All right. Well, this is my husband, Chris, and he's here to share his perspective on optimizing male fertility. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're
yeah.
so excited.
Thank you guys for having me. This is great. What a privilege. I'm honored to be here, and I love that you guys are doing this. This is going to be so valuable for so many women, so many families.
Yes.
So, would you mind sharing a little bit about you, and then you can kind of launch into anything that you'd want to share with any men who are listening? Our hope is that we can reach women, obviously, and then they would share this podcast with their husbands.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So I'm 44. I am uh, a lot of things. I'm an athlete. I'm a lifelong athlete. I have a very non-traditional past. So I was in ministry for about 10 years in Christian ministry, and then decided to take an exit from that and pursued a career in medicine. So I did about 8 to 10 years of pre-medical and then upper level medical education. Um, and then in 2020, that happened. Everything was upside down and crazy in the world. I walked away in 2021 in my third year of studying naturopathic medicine and classical Chinese medicine. And it's been an adventure ever since. We've had to really pray hard and think hard and have a lot of conversations about what are the things that are most valuable to us. What do we want to live for? What do we want to come to the end of our lives and think, yeah, we gave everything to this and we're so proud of the legacy that we're leaving behind. And a few things started emerging. One was we really want to pour into others. That's a huge priority for us. We want to make the world a better place. We want families to thrive. That's a huge passion for us, is when you look out the sort of the landscape of this societal cultural moment, there's a lot of stuff that's happening in our society
Yeah.
that I think in large part, like a lot of it could just be solved by having healthy, happy, loving homes with structure and good marriages. And I think, all facets of society would benefit from that. It's certainly, you know, um, powerful for the development of kids as they grow up and giving them a solid foundation to move out into the world. And so that's a big part of our passion, is pouring into families and building good marriages and trying to be a good example of that. And so we have a number of outlets. We've started a campus where it's kind of a family leadership academy, Socratic Learning Center. We did that for a while. Brett obviously is doing birth education and working with women, and I have ventured out into a variety of things. So I'm also a military guy. Health is a big priority for me for obvious reasons, being medical school and and just wanting to live a long, healthy, happy life where I'm in my 80s and 90s and I'm still going hard after it. I'm still hiking. We live here in the Pacific Northwest. There's waterfalls to see, there's mountains to climb, and being active and playing with my grandkids and maybe someday our great grandkids. And I want to I want to be living well in old age. And so I feel like that's a really go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with everything that you're talking about. I mean, I think our society as a whole would benefit from more time with their families and being together and figuring out how to function well and work through things together. And I feel like a lot of the time, at least here in the US, I mean, I'm sure it happens in other countries as well. I just feel like the basic core foundational things of family are just not cared about as much. It's kind of just like pushed to the side, and let's just focus on working and making as much money as possible. And I mean, as you know, a lot of the time that ends up with people not being well because of that. They're not spending time with people they love. They're not doing the things that they want to do, or the things that they love. They're not keeping themselves well. And so I love that you guys are working so hard on that, and you care so much about the legacy that you're leaving behind. And one thing you mentioned was like living well and being healthy and moving into older ages, so like 70s, 80s. There are people who really do well because they don't stop moving, and they take care of themselves and they eat well. And those are the type of people that inspire me. I remember hearing so many people say like, oh, I would die for my kids. I'm like, why would you want to die for your kids? I'm like, don't you want to be around longer for them? So that's actually a conversation I had with my husband, because I'm like, no, I want to be thriving for as long as I possibly can. Like that's the goal for me. So we can be around for our kids and grandkids and be able to be up and moving and active with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's just something awesome about being a 50-year-old and just being like shredded, like I can still hang in the gym and put up weight, and that I still have that summer bod, and I'm 55 years old. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Oh
um,
man.
yeah. So in terms of male fertility, it's such a great topic.
Yeah.
Man, I wish I would have taken the time to write down the statistics, some really important statistics before we hopped on the call. But I know that fertility for men and women is down, and
Yeah.
there aren't as many kids being born, and it's definitely a problem. And yeah, I think male and female sexual health is a big hot button topic. And what I would like to do is kind of bring a little bit of a fresh perspective, or maybe a different perspective on male fertility that isn't talked about much or as often.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of sort of the traditional or the conventional Western biomedical perspective.
Right.
And I think in that world where we grow up thinking that really we're sort of at the cutting edge of medical research and technology, and in many ways we're just not.
No.
And so we're just deeply conditioned from a very young age to inherently trust in the system. But I'd like to point out that one of the inherent flaws within it is that it is um, only focused on the material world. It's inherently materialistic, right? And so it's only looking at physical components
Like, what do
of
your labs say?
a body, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do the labs say? What are the hard
Right.
numbers? What's the data?
Right.
And that's only one slice of the total human. So it's only a part.
And that's
And
kind of how Liv and I broke it up last episode, was these are the pillars.
Yeah.
And so we kind of walked through those. That's exactly what you're talking about, is what we were talking about last episode.
I love that.
Yeah.
I can't wait to listen to
it. It reminds me of, I think I was listening to a podcast. I wish I could remember what it was, but it was talking about the power of the mind. And I think that I think the guest on the podcast had been invited on to share their story about healing themselves, healing naturally from, I think it was a cancer diagnosis or something like that. And it was talking about what that person did in terms of what they thought. So they were given this diagnosis and they refused to accept it, essentially. And so they continued living their lives. I think they changed a couple things in regards to their work and maybe what they were eating. But they went in for scans that had shown the cancer, right, on the scans. And then I think they went back 2 or 3 months later, something like that. And it was gone, like completely gone. And so to your point, like when people are like, oh, what do your labs say? What do your scans say? What does this say? What does that say? Everybody was asking this person, well, what did you do? Like, what were all the things that you did? And they're like, I just refused to accept that that was going to be my diagnosis and
Mhm.
my path for my life. And then a couple of other things. But again, like people don't realize that's such a small piece of it. And like your mindset and about how you approach things matters so much in terms of your overall health.
Yeah, absolutely. That's you hit the nail on the head.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, if I could zoom out for a moment and give kind of like a broad overview of sort of how I filter human health, male health, is in which directly affects male fertility
Right.
is really the question for me is how has God designed the world and how has He designed us as men and women to live and interact with that world and I believe that there's a creator God who loves us and designed the world and us perfectly for us to thrive in it and so the more that we come into alignment with God's purposes and God's plan for human living, the more our overall health, mind, body, spirit, soul, our physical bodies are all going to positively be affected. And
Yeah.
so for me, it becomes a matter of alignment and where am I out of alignment in these various areas of my life? Any of those areas, whether it's spiritual, mental, emotional, relational, certainly that's a huge part of it in a marriage relationship between mom and dad and who are trying to conceive. If I'm out of alignment in any of those areas, the other areas are going to suffer.
Right.
And so just coming back to the point that I was trying to make with the Western biomedical paradigm is that it doesn't have the tools, nor does it train providers to really take into account the whole picture. They just don't have the tools to take into account the whole picture of the human being. And
Yeah.
so there may very well be some deeply troubling spiritual issues that are impacting a man's fertility because he's living in a way that's out of alignment with the way that God created him to live, right? And a doctor is just not going to have any category, a medical doctor for that, and not to fault them, and that's not to speak against doctors across the board. I'm just saying they don't have the tools, they don't have that training, they don't have that perspective because
Right.
they're trained in a very narrow way of looking at things. So yeah, I think I would want to lead that conversation with just that starting point of like, okay, we are whole people, mind, body, spirit, our souls, our relationships, all of those things. The things that we eat matter, the way that we sleep or don't sleep matters. Like, if there's unforgiveness and bitterness and resentment seething and spinning around in us, that's going to affect our health, not just emotionally, but on a physical level as well. So, yeah, so I think that's just a really good starting point for this conversation.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think that's a huge perspective that people are missing out on though.
Yeah.
Because to your point, I mean, you've been in the medical field. You've studied underneath that. Granted, it wasn't traditional allopathic, it was more so naturopathic. And like you mentioned, Chinese medicine. Um, but again, like we've also had conversations like about that too, and just like the kind of like the protocol that they follow in general. And I just feel like it's missing this understanding, this basic understanding of how God designed us. And Britt and I talked about that at length, I think in the last two times we recorded. Just that like we actually are not just born broken. Like that
Mhm.
just if we get into a traumatic accident, that's a different story. But like our bodies are so capable. They're so much more capable than people realize. And when it comes to diagnoses and putting people in a box and putting people on medications and saying, well, you actually need this in order to be better, when they're missing out on, okay, well, where are you out of alignment? Like you said, if there's one part of you that impacts everything, it's not just, it doesn't impact anything, it impacts all the layers. And so I think that that's a huge perspective that's really important for everyone to hear, but men specifically, because I feel like, I mean, I haven't personally experienced it, but I have friends and family members who they've struggled with fertility. And most of the time it's, they talk about the woman and they talk about the woman's piece, but they don't really talk about the male fertility and they don't really even consider the male fertility at all. I feel like there's just this just this focus on, okay, well, what can the woman do? When in reality, it's no, what can both people do? What can the husband and the wife do in order to
Yeah,
try?
even in their relationship, and not just physically, but
Right,
like also within the relationship, like nobody's evaluating the relationship
right,
dynamic, and
right.
that plays a huge role.
Yep.
It does. It's
Yeah.
massive. And I think that I'm so glad we're having this conversation because I don't even know if people have considered that. Maybe some, obviously, but like it's both people working together in order to
Hmm.
make a baby. And so I think that opening up that conversation of like, hey, where are we struggling? Am I really telling you how I'm feeling? Or are you really not telling me how you're feeling? How can we go about this together so we can both be okay? So we can both work on ourselves and ultimately like our overall health. I think that's so important. It's a piece that's so missed out on because it's most of the time, and what people have shared with me at least, is that it's labs, it's blood work, it's testing, and they don't even have a conversation about what's your day-to-day life look like, what are your stress levels, what are your relationships look like, how's your sleep. Like
Hmm.
I feel like that is just pushed to the side, and that's the core, those are the core foundational things that impact that other things as well.
Absolutely. And to your point about diagnoses, even diagnoses themselves can be like a self-fulfilling prophecy
Yes.
spoken over someone's life,
Like a curse.
Mhm.
where yeah, it can become like a
Heard that last
curse.
week.
Yes.
And you sort of like drink that in, and it becomes a part of your core story that plays
Yeah.
subconsciously, like it's a part of your identity, or can
Mhm.
become a part of many people's identity. We see this a lot. If you're on social media, you see I'm a survivor of this, or I have this diagnosis.
Yeah.
People form an identity around a declaration or a statement that a doctor gave them because this doctor sits in a position of authority or expertise. And so they say,
Mhm.
well, he said it, that's who I am, that's what I am.
Right.
And that in itself can be a powerful, um, it can be determinative if you
Yeah.
don't like reject that as a an identity piece, you
Mhm.
know. So yeah, I tend to shy away from diagnoses, and
Oh, I do too.
Like
I'm not,
receiving them all
I'm
together and then
not.
definitely not
yeah,
agreeing with them.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think to your point, I mean, you see it on social media all the time. And some people will probably be upset by us saying, like you're taking this one thing and you're running with it and you're making that your
hmm,
identity. But a lot of people are doing that for like brand purposes or whatever,
sure,
or
sure,
relatability, or how can I gain followers. But it's like that's actually not who you are. Like that is
hmm,
that is not your core, that's not your foundation. That's what somebody else told you and you just listened to them. But
yeah,
then holding on to whatever that label is, whatever that diagnosis is, that will keep you unwell. Like it will continue to
Hmm.
keep you unwell because
hmm,
I don't know. I just my grandmother was like, so we're not complaining, like we're gonna keep moving. And so for me, I've always been like, okay, if someone says that doesn't mean that's who you are. That doesn't mean that's how you have to continue living your life. You actually can
hmm,
change that. Like the whole I don't even know. I'm trying to think of the right word. Like the genetics conversation, like you are definitely going to get this because your parents had it or your aunt had it or so and so has it.
hmm,
I'm like, you can do so many things for your overall health for that to not happen to you.
yeah,
You don't have to believe that you're going to have something that someone in your family had just because that's why. And
100%,
so
Yeah.
I've had conversations with people like that, and they're like, "No, it's definitely like it's
yeah,
scientifically proven." And I'm like, "You're speaking that into existence for
hmm,
yourself."
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And I'll just speak to this too. Like God is a healer,
Yes.
and I believe in the supernatural. I believe in miracles. You know, and God, I've seen people like healed supernaturally. In fact, I have a great story. This is worth sharing. There's a local. He's a leader here in our area, just a little south of us. Really well known, very well respected, upstanding man in this community. And his wife for 30 plus years struggled with these sort of vague symptoms of fatigue, um, pain, headaches,
I think they just probably call them like autoimmune
some kind
things.
of autoimmune, just a general diagnosis because we didn't know what it was, kind of thing. And so um, he got into a conversation with a friend of his, and he said, look, I want to dig a little bit back into your wife's family history. And so they sat down with this man, I can't remember his name, and he said, hey, like, have you ever experienced any kind of like, and this is a real, I don't know, I'm gonna go there. Let's go there. Have you ever experienced any, have you ever experienced any like witchcraft in your family? Have you ever encountered anything like that? And she said, yeah, actually my family grew up in Mexico. Me and my sisters grew up in Mexico, and we have family members that go back generations to that city in Mexico. And 3 or 4 generations ago, there was a local, like a shaman or a witch doctor. I don't know what to call it. I'm sorry. I don't know what they call it in Mexico, but they had some kind of like personal offense, and this person who practiced witchcraft cursed the family, all of the women, the firstborn women in the family. And so as they were having this conversation with this man's wife, the light bulbs began to go on for her, and she goes, oh, my great grandmother had this, and my grandmother had this, and I have this, and they're all the firstborn women in the family. And he said, okay, I'm going to pray about this, and we're going to just break that curse that was cast over this spell. And she immediately was healed. And this guy is like, I'm totally questioning this, is very skeptical. And as the weeks went on and 0 symptoms appeared, he was sold. He was like, wow, this is real. And it's a powerful story to share that there are other elements to our health that could be spiritual. And I believe God can break those curses that go through families. It may not necessarily be hereditary in sort of that conventional genetic sense. It may be hereditary in like a spiritual sense. And as a follower of Jesus Christ, I believe we have the authority to break those things and to reset things in our bloodline. And come on now, I feel like that's a word for somebody, but no, it's true. It is so powerful. And again, like, I'll just go back to that point, where we started with, like, coming into alignment with the way that God has designed us is a really powerful way.
Because he designed us for our bodies to be healing all the time. Like, our bodies are always trying to heal itself. So if we just believe that to begin with, then we're not under the belief that we are going to have this diagnosis because our mom and our grandmom had this diagnosis, right? So just even that belief system, if you don't come into agreement with that, then I think that you can just trust that God is healing your body and it's designed to heal on its own. Then I think that's really powerful by itself.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it goes to show, I mean, what Chris was saying, like, that's a testimony that someone shared with him. And the more testimonies that people hear, the more likely they are to actually believe and like change their own perspectives, change their own beliefs. And it reminds me kind of, I mean, it's not exactly the same thing, but with what you've shared briefly about on the podcast, Brit, was German New Medicine, and like going back and looking at things and unpacking things. Because like you said, Chris, you were saying if you're holding on to bitterness and anger and unforgiveness and all these things, that really that impacts you. Like it will impact you. Like, I remember trying to explain that to someone, just that like holding on to anger and holding on to unforgiveness, or holding on to even sadness and grief, like that shows up in your body. It shows up with how you're feeling on a day-to-day basis. And it's not to say like just completely push them aside and ignore them. It's saying, okay, well, this is showing up for me. Where is it showing up in my body? Like, so many people don't realize how in tune we can be with our bodies if we actually know what's going on with them, if we are actually aware of the emotions that we're feeling, or whatever is coming up, or whatever has happened in the past that we just did not address at the time, or didn't feel like we were able to at the time. And so I think that talking about that piece of it is so important for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Emotions are meant to move.
Yes.
And emotions become a problem. Like, grief is a human emotion. That's something that we're all going to experience. We're all going to experience sadness or anger. We're all going to, at some point, we're going to be offended and struggle with, forgiving someone else and having resentment towards them. These are all very human experiences. Those emotions are meant to move through our body, and it becomes a problem when we clamp down on them and it gets stuck. And the body hides emotion in places, and it partitions it off, and you feel it manifests in physical symptoms. And so, just to your point about the emotional aspect of it, yeah, it's like they need to be processed, and it's not a matter of toxic positivity of like everything's light and love. Yeah, everything's great, I'm having an awesome day. Not helpful either. That's you're not dealing with reality, bud. Like it's okay to grieve, but it needs to move. And you also mentioned the relationship between a man and his wife. This is so overlooked. This is an under-examined aspect of fertility when couples are trying to conceive. And we have seen this with people we know play out over and over, especially when, this is a really hard thing that many couples experience, but when they have miscarriages, is one of the lacking things that often occurs with miscarriages is that relationship. The woman who's trying to conceive has a lack of a sense of safety that on an emotional, biological level, her body's reading like it's not safe to bring a baby into this world. Right. And it's totally subconscious. This is functioning in her body. Right. And so if there are issues between a husband and wife and they're trying to conceive and she's like, you're not a safe partner, or you're not a provider, and I can't trust, maybe she doesn't trust that he's a hard worker and he's going to provide. And so she doesn't feel safe that the baby's going to have enough resources. And these, like I said, could all just be subconscious stories that are playing in her body. But biologically, what often happens is her body then naturally just rejects the pregnancy.
It's protection.
It's protection. Yeah.
And when you say safety, like this is like the last episode, we talked about this a little bit, and how safety doesn't necessarily mean like I'm physically unsafe with this man. Like most of the time it's a lack of like emotional safety, and that can be completely overlooked because it's not something that's like easily identified in a relationship. And most women that actually feel that, if you were to ask them, they're like, of course I feel safe, So yeah, we talked about that a little bit last time, but how do you go about providing that safety? How would you do this? How do you go about providing safety? Like, how would you share with other men that you provide that safe space? Or ensure security, whether that be like security in all the ways. But how do you provide that for me? How would you tell them to provide that for their wives?
On an emotional level?
Yeah, on an emotional level, but also like so that she feels secure and safe emotionally. But that can be done in a number of ways.
Yeah. It's really important. Men have to do this work, and it's best done with other men. And I'm gonna plug this too, big time, that you go spend time alone with God and start pouring out your heart to Him, because you got to get you have to find, as a man, you have to find attunement with your own emotions. Like as men, we have a default emotion, that's anger. That's where we go to. That's safe. It's safe to feel anger and to process that one. But it's a proxy emotion for men much of the time. And so underneath the anger, there's the layers of grief and fear. And a lot of men deal with anxiety and they're afraid to talk about that. And, sadness, rejection and abandonment issues. These are all things that many men have felt, that maybe struggle with on an ongoing basis. And the default proxy emotion is anger. So it's like, but underneath that is all this other stuff. But if he has not learned to access his own emotions and allow that to move through his body and to see it for what it is, and to hold space for it, then he's not going to be able to do that for his wife, for his partner, the mother of his child. And she is going to inherently feel emotionally unsafe. She might not be afraid of him, that he's going to hurt her physically.
Right.
But women are very intuitive, and I think that there's just sort of this like there's this sense that she doesn't feel held emotionally in the relationship for a lot of women. Mm-hmm. And so it is a man's responsibility and duty to learn how to be a healthy, strong container for the fluctuations of his wife's emotional life. Mm-hmm. And that's just a part of human relationship. Women have a lot of emotions. That's okay.
I think to your point though, it is helpful for men to know about a woman's cycle. Because there's different phases each month, and it is helpful for men to know about that. And women. And I think that's something that our society in general, like women have definitely become more educated on it, but it's helpful for men as well.
Absolutely it is. Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah, you've had to learn a few cycles in this house.
He's
outnumbered here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I love being a girl dad. It's good. It's good life training.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. So, I haven't always been good at handling my own emotions, and Brendan and I have had a lot of really great conversations, hard conversations. There's been quite a few tearful conversations, and a lot of ownership and a lot of growing with each other over the years. But I think on my end, the thing that has moved the needle the most in our relationship in terms of what I can bring is my time alone with God behind closed doors every single day. Yeah. And I need to go be alone with God, and he pours himself into me, and I pray for my family, I pray for my marriage, I pray for my kids, pray about my life. And as that has become like a habit of my life that I won't let up on. That's like, this is happening every day. If I have to wake up an hour earlier, this is happening. Yeah. The more that's been a habit of my life over the years, the last handful of years, the stronger our marriage has become, the stronger our emotional connection has become, the better I've been able to be a safe container for our emotional life. And I think that is a really important aspect of healthy male-female relationship is a man a safe space? Can he remain calm in emotional conflict without losing it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I agree. I feel like, I mean, when you were talking earlier just about like our world in general and the need for families to be together more and how that's like a missing piece, I really do think that men need other men who are out, outside of obviously having their own time with the Lord. I do think that men really do need other men who are on a similar path or who are ahead of them. They need to have essentially like a mentor of someone that they can go to be like, I've been praying about this. I've been struggling with this. Can you pray with me? Can you pray for me or pray for my family? Because I've seen that movement within our church. I've seen it with people in our lives, and I feel like, to your point from the very beginning, like not having that spiritual belief, that faith, it really, really does impact you. And then, like you said, you've been spending these last couple of years really focusing on that. And I'm sure Brit and your whole family can feel that. They can see
absolutely.
And then it probably makes everyone else feel more safe and different in a good way, in a positive way. And so I love that you shared that, because I do think that men do need to hear that, and they do need to hear testimonies of that as well. Like, this is what my journey was. This is where I was. This is where I am now. It's not always easy, but life is not meant to be easy. So
yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, there's even a verse in the Bible that says, men, you need to be gentle with your wives so that your prayers won't be hindered.
Wow.
I don't think that would have been a letter in the New Testament if men didn't sometimes struggle with being gentle with their wives.
Yeah.
And so it's something to keep in mind. But like, your relationship with your wife directly affects your relationship with God. Like I don't want to go be alone with God and God's like, hey, how are you talking to my daughter? I don't like that. Like, ooh, I don't want to, I'm sorry. I got to go make some apologies. And I've had to make a lot of apologies over the years, you know? But that's another really important thing that I think is healthy for a wife and for the relationship is when a man does make mistakes, like he goes to her and he says, hey, I messed up. I own it. I won't do that again. I'm going to work on that. I see what I did. No excuses, you know? So yeah, I feel like that's a good conversation about providing emotional safety.
Yeah. Yeah, and then security. So there'd be like financial security. So another piece of that is it'd be nice if you can get your woman to stay home. You know, she'd probably feel like a little bit more relaxed and less stressed and provided for if she's able to stay in the home. And I know it's not always something that men can provide, but working towards that, I think is really important.
I think it's a huge conversation, and I see it often, and I feel like that's one of the things that's out of alignment with our entire world is just
Absolutely. Yeah.
the cost of living and the priorities about what's important. And to your point, Chris, like you were talking about materialistic things, there's a lot of ways. I mean, I think we touched on it briefly, Brett, where we were just talking about how we do things at home or do things differently in order to save money so we can be home. And a lot of people will be like, oh, well, you could go out and you could make all this money. And you're like, but that's not what matters the most to me. That's not what my family needs from me. And being aware of that and being in tune with that. And we talked a while ago, I feel like months ago, maybe even in the fall, where we were talking about really doing things that bring us joy and don't stress us out, and like work that we love doing. And like you guys said earlier, you really want to be pouring into people and you want to be helping people. And so I think that having conversations about like, okay, well, do you actually need this, or is this just a materialistic thing that you feel like you need for to show off for somebody else? I mean, it's like there's simple questions like, why are you buying this? Why are you doing that type of thing? And so I think that
it comes down to, what do you value the most?
Yeah. What really matters the most? And if that really matters, what changes can you make? And I feel like, obviously, I mean, the world we live in is so expensive nowadays, depending on where you live and all of the things. And so the more self-sufficient we can be, and the more things we can do at home, and the more ways we can spend time with our family is so important. And I also do think that, from my experience at least, there's a way to be providing for your family financially, like even in seasons where you have to. It doesn't mean like it's going to be like that all the time, but there's a way to find a way to provide doing something that you love in a positive way, not just like, oh, I'm so stressed out, I have to have this job, I have to keep doing this, for it to negatively impact you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is a really important thing for a man to be a provider for his family. And one of the things that requires for a man to be able to provide for his family enough for the wife to come home if she's in the workplace, to, you know, if she desires to stay with her kids, with her baby, to raise them full time. And I think a lot of women really want that.
Yes.
But one of the things that requires of a man is, if he needs to earn more money, he needs to become a better man or a better version of himself. And so he needs to be working on himself to up level in areas of his life. He may need to become more disciplined with his time. Are you sitting there on your phone scrolling? I've been so bad at that over the years. I'll just get caught on my phone, just scrolling on social media. I'm like, I am wasting time.
Like they need a dopamine detox.
Yeah.
Right?
Being more disciplined with your time. Are you playing video games, dude, and you're a grown man? Are you? I can't. No. If you're a grown man, you have no business spending hours of your life playing video games. I'm just gonna say it. I hope that reaches someone who needs to hear it, and if it offends you, good. Fix it.
That helps.
Yeah, fix it. Do not be wasting hours of your time as a grown man playing video games or watching a lot of TV or even sports. look, I grew up playing sports. I love sports, but investing your life too much in professional sports and all of that can also be a tax on your time that would best be used or invested elsewhere.
Building something.
Maybe building something, maybe growing another stream of income.
Yeah. So many things. I actually, I wish I saved it. I don't know if I saved it. There's a woman that I follow, and she's a mother, and I think she has all boys. I think she has 4 boys, I want to say. And she literally spent time writing a piece about um, men who spend too much time getting emotionally and financially invested in sports and gambling and all of that, and why she and her husband are working so hard to not have their sons let that take over like everything. It's not saying don't go out and play sports, don't do that, but just as an adult, if you are getting like frustrated beyond belief because this team is not playing the way you want them to play, or they didn't win, and then you're taking that out on your family, that is not what life's about. It's just not. So I'm not saying don't go play sports. If you love sports, go play them. But to your point,
there's totally there are so many ways to make money in this world right now. Through social media, through the internet. There's so many opportunities out there. Even part-time, you can build multiple streams of income. Get creative, start learning, read books, take online courses, get around men who are better than you, that are providing better, that are better with their money. Learn from them, get in rooms that you're not the smartest, invest in, where other people are able to, give you some helpful input and advice, and hold you to a higher standard. Those are the things that, on a man's end, that he can start to up-level himself to be able to position himself to be a better provider. I think it's really important too.
So that covers like the emotional part of it probably pretty well, as far as like safety, security. Anything specifically that you would share around physical health? Like, how would you prep yourself physically to prepare your body for optimal vitality for conception?
Yeah. So that is a great question. The physical piece isn't unimportant. There's some really practical takeaways that I can give. So sleep. Are you getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night, restful sleep? That's super important. And I don't want to downplay the sleep portion. It's like the most basic thing, but that needs to be in place. A lot of men are, especially as they move into their middle-aged years, 30s, 40s, tend to let themselves go. They get off work, they're tired, they just want to sit back and relax. They're not hitting the gym. They start to get that beer gut. They're not really taking care of themselves. Look, I get that our bodies change over time. We can't do the same things we did in our teens and 20s, but it's super important for a man to remain active. Remaining physically active in some capacity is going to massively boost his fertility, like his testosterone levels, even losing some weight. This is not to shame anybody, but like as a man, if you're starting to get overweight, you're starting to get that beer gut, look, be better for your wife, be better for yourself. You were made for more. So get to the gym, hit the weights, go for walks. Seriously, just walking a few miles a day. That's one of the ways that we just connect. We live across the street from this beautiful lake and park. So we walk and we talk and we get this exercise. We can do that together. But just remaining physically active. So for me, I'm at the gym, well, these days 6 or 7 days a week, actually, most days of the week. And I don't train like I did in my 30s. I was infantry in the Army, and I've trained at a pretty high physical level. I've been a competitive CrossFitter and grown up playing team sports. I don't train that way anymore. When I go to the gym, I hit the sauna 5-6 days a week after I hit the weights, and I train to move well into old age, not to hit PRs. And so as you're in your 40s and your 30s, maybe you're not trying to push that huge weight and hit a personal record. Maybe you're just going and you're staying strong and fit. Like that's going to affect your fertility. And then in terms of detox, so we live in a world where we are heavily exposed to environmental toxins. And it's everywhere. Water, tap water is one of the most overlooked sources of environmental toxins. And tap water has pharmaceuticals, like birth control is in a lot of water supply in the US. Antidepressants, both of those drugs, when you're ingesting them by drinking unfiltered tap water, are going to affect your male fertility, your spermatogenesis, your testosterone levels, all those things. But you can detox from even things like plastic. We have microplastics in our blood. We absorb it. Yeah, we're ingesting it. We eat out of plastic. It's everywhere. So things like sauna, moving your body regularly to keep the blood and the lymph flowing. I'll even say this is a little bit controversial for men to hear, but enemas, coffee enemas especially. We I don't know, someone's listening to this laughing right now, but
I said it last one. That's why I'm kind of laughing. I'm like,
I've already said it last week.
It's amazing. Well, it's kind of taboo for men to talk about. It shouldn't be, but yeah, it's one really helpful way. Fasting, doing a periodic 3-day plus water fast where you're just drinking water or tea or black coffee. That will cleanse your body of a lot of toxins. So there are. Go ahead.
Sorry, isn't the point of like fasting to get your body more alkaline? Is that what it is? I was reading something the other day and they were talking about fasting, but as you know, like there's so many different resources on it. But it was basically like you said, just to get your body back to like a baseline. So I didn't know. I haven't done it, so I didn't know if you knew about like the main.
Like it changes the acidity in our blood, right? Isn't that what it does?
I
don't want to make stuff up.
I know. I'm like, I have to look up some statistics.
Our bodies are highly acidic in the environment that we live in, and the more acidic, I've read this, the more acidic our body gets, the more physical symptoms of illness we tend to manifest. I want to say Dr. Young, maybe Dr. Robert Young, has done a lot of work on alkalinity, or how to like alkaline diet.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, so that can be really helpful. But no, fasting puts the body in a state of autophagy. So it's autophagy is like your body's eating itself, but
right.
What it goes to is it's eating the cells that need to be broken down, the tissues that need to be broken down in the body, and it flushes. When you think about the bulk of human history, it was not normal for men and women to eat 3 meals a day and be in a perpetual state of digestion. That just wasn't how we're talking thousands of years of our ancestors. That's not how they would eat for the most part. And so I think our bodies are designed to go through periodic fasting, if not regular fasting. And women, their bodies are a little bit different. I think that it is advisable as a woman to look at fasting a little bit differently than it is for a man. Just because your female body responds to those stresses differently,
especially when pregnant or breastfeeding.
And different periods of your cycle throughout the month.
Yeah, for sure, that too.
I have seen a lot of people talking, or men specifically, or their wives talking about how their husbands are doing fast, and it's been so great for them, just in terms of their overall health and vitality, like you've talked about. So I do think that that's another important piece. I mean, I don't really know because I've never been to a doctor as a male, but like, do they even mention fasting to men? Like, is that something that's even suggested as something that could be helpful? Is I guess one of my questions in general. Not necessarily that you would have to answer that, but it's fascinating to me because I feel like there's so many of these different ways and perspectives that you've approached, that you've done in your family, that people might not even know about. And so that's why I'm just so glad that we're able to have this conversation, and men are able to hear it from another man rather than just from Brit and I.
Yeah. I think even in terms of diet, like I don't believe in one size fits all diets, but I know for men, it's really important to have like a healthy fat and protein intake, especially because fat makes up a lot of as far as I know. And I questioned a lot of medical science after going down several different rabbit holes. But a high cholesterol diet, high fat diet, which runs counter to a lot of conventional medical advice, is actually healthy for testosterone production in male health. And so we do tend to eat, whole fat raw milk. We have our diet in our home is awesome. It's super healthy for you. It's great. It's delicious. Yeah. We eat a lot of, grass fed, a lot of eggs. Yeah. We have chickens in our backyard.
Eggs.
Yeah, so many eggs. A lot of grass fed beef and elk. We're fortunate to have people in our lives that give us elk. And
that's so cool.
Yeah. So eating less processed foods. Processed foods makes a huge difference in male overall health and fertility and performance. It's definitely a hindrance. So, and then alcohol. I quit drinking alcohol 5.5 years ago, completely. And every once in a while, I'll have a little sip of a delicious drink that she might get when we go out to a nice dinner. So I try this one. Ooh, that's nice. But as a general rule, I don't drink any alcohol, and
I really don't either.
And she doesn't either. Yeah, to be
like
perfectly honest,
I really don't.
That's like a once a month or every other month kind of like one drink.
It's like, no, I don't.
Not even that. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Seriously.
I think that's
several months.
Though. I think that's a big piece that is not. I mean, I feel like that's more talked about for the women in terms of their fertility than it is for the men. But it actually matters for men as well. Like, especially if you guys are in a season of like, okay, we would like to conceive and we'd like to make a baby. Obviously, not drinking in general positively impacts your health. Besides if you were ready to try and make a family. But I feel like that conversation in and of itself for men is fascinating to me, because I've seen it with my husband. So when we first started dating, I told him, I was like, I don't really drink, like, and I had a couple like drinks here and there when we had gone out to dinner, and I was like, I just don't feel good, so that's why I don't really do it. And he ended up being like one of the first friends in his group of friends to just decide to not drink anymore. And some of them were really like coming at him for it. And then he kind of watched a domino effect of I think 2 or 3 or maybe 4 of them stopping and just talking about how their overall health changed. And he has friends who are single, he has friends who are engaged, friends who are married. But he's seen a positive impact in that regard because they decided to stop doing that for themselves, like on their own. So yeah, it's interesting. And I think, like, obviously, like you said, to your point, once you get to a certain age, you're like, okay, what am I even doing? Why am I doing this? Like that, what are your priorities? What do you value? And so if your health is one of those things, it's kind of just a natural decision that you make to stop.
Yeah.
What about coffee?
The coffee. Okay. So that's so I quit drinking coffee 3 months ago, I think. Man, that was a tough one. That was I think I was up to 5 or 6 cups of coffee a day.
Oh my gosh.
It was a lot. And part of that was like surviving med school and doing a master's and a doctorate at the same time. And then, being I was working night shifts for a while. And so it was just trying to function during the day, survival, and I just became dependent on it. And I enjoy coffee. I really like it. And I'm not, opposed to drinking coffee again. But what I noticed is that my overall health was taking a hit. And so I decided to do a detox from coffee, and I switched to tea. a much lower amount of caffeine. And so I still get a little bit every day. But that actually does, a lot of caffeine, a lot of coffee can affect male fertility. It'll certainly affect like your energy levels and your overall vitality. It's a tax on your system. It's processing too much caffeine, can affect your sleep, which also will affect your overall health. And also can be a tax on your nervous system and your emotional system. If you're on high alert because of a high amount of caffeine that you're taking in every day through coffee, or even energy drinks, that's another huge one for men. They drink a lot of energy drinks. Then your nervous system can be dysregulated.
It's straight up poison.
It's straight up poison.
Stop poisoning yourself.
Those are, that's a whole other conversation.
It is, seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen so many people talk about coffee, and me personally, I never started drinking coffee. So there's a lot that I have not experienced that people share with me, but I remember seeing all of my friends in high school, they always get iced coffees. And then if they didn't get one, they had a raging migraine. And I was like, I don't want that. I just, and it always smelled good to me, but I didn't want to add all this sugar and all this other stuff. And so I do remember there was one time though, I had a headache and someone was like, "Oh, take this caffeine pill. It'll help." I literally thought I was going to die because my body had never experienced caffeine like that. Like my heart was, I was like, I have to lay here until this stops.
So like when I hear she's like, I'm going into cardiac arrest.
I'm not kidding. I was genuinely worried. I think I was like 21 or 22, and I had never had that much caffeine, so my body didn't know what to do. Like you said, literally did not know how to process it. But I do think that it's important to talk about, and it's not saying like you said, like having coffee here and there, it's not like horrible for you. But if it's something that's consistent, something that's keeping your nervous system in a sense of like holding on and anxiety and affecting your sleep, like that's real. That's something that actually happens. I mean, my husband, he stopped drinking coffee. He's had it here and there, but he's like, once I stopped and then I've had it like a day or two, since then, he's like, I'm so tired. Like I feel so drained. And that's obviously, I mean, that's not fun for anybody. Yeah.
I feel so much better. I'm so glad I quit. I'll probably go back to having a cup of coffee every once in a while, but it was like at a different level. So I'm glad. And I don't know if maybe just to return to the alcohol conversation really quickly is something that a lot of men may not know is that drinking beer actually reduces your testosterone levels. And so that's something that like we kind of grow up in our culture thinking it's manly to have a beer and watch sports and shoot guns. And I'm like, I got it. Cool. But it's actually not manly. It's technically making you less manly because it's knocking down your testosterone levels. I think
doesn't it raise your estrogen also?
It raises your estrogen, yes. It converts testosterone into estrogen. And so, I think a broader question is this thing, energy drinks, coffee, alcohol, sports, video games, are these things serving me in my life right now? Are they helping me to become the best version of myself, the man that God has created for me to be? And if not, then why are you doing it? Let's, get a little bit serious about like life goes by quick. It goes by like that. Do you want to be spending, hours of your week every week, which becomes weeks and months and, maybe years of your life watching video games and movies and sports when you could have been using that building something that's really meaningful and becoming the man that you were created to be? And I think I'm just at a point in my life where I feel increasingly a sense of urgency and passion for, what is my life really about? And what mark am I going to leave? In 40, 50 years from now, I hope I live well into my 90s. Man, I'd love to hit 100. That would be awesome. and that runs in my family, so it might happen. But I want to get there. I want to be 100 years old and look back and be like, I'm so proud that I did the hard thing. I made the decisions, that I gave up the thing that was holding me back. And a lot of those things like beer and coffee and, I used to dip, so the tobacco, a lot of those things are coping mechanisms that men use as like little like dopamine hits to make them feel less stressed, to just tamper down that anxiety a little bit, to give them a little hit of like, oh, I feel good now. And it's like, stop leaning on these things to give you those hits. And do the things that actually give you the real dopamine that you have to earn and work for, like increasing your paycheck, like going to the gym every day, like, waking up early and spending time in prayer and reading your Bible. Like those things are going to make you feel real good without cheating and sipping on the alcohol and, putting a dip in or whatever. And it's not to say like, man, all those things are evil. It's not that. It's just, are they serving you? Are they making you the man that you're designed to be? And if you are becoming the man that you're designed to be, your whole health is going to be better. It's going to be positively impacted. And fertility is a part of that. Your relationships are going to be positively impacted. Your children are going to see an example of what it likes to continue getting better as you get older, instead of like slowly declining. I mean, come on now.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a motivator, right? Like once you make one change in one area and you realize how much it positively impacts your life, how you feel, you're like, oh, okay, well, what else can I do? And then you kind of just, it's like a spiral in a good way. Like, how can I what are these things that I can do that will make me feel good without searching for it elsewhere? And I think that I'm hoping that men who hear you speaking about everything that you've talked about on this episode are like, okay, wow, like I can actually, these are small changes that I can make that end up being the big stuff. They end up changing the huge core foundational parts of you and positively impacting your family, your job, your kids, your marriage, everything. So yeah, I'm hoping that men will hear this and feel encouraged and hear it coming from a man and not from a woman. That's just a different perspective that I feel like a lot of men really need, in general in our society.
Yeah. Cool. That's awesome. That's good stuff. What else?
I was gonna say, I feel like we've covered a lot in this episode. Like I've just kind of been taking notes as we've gone. And we were talking about the spiritual part, we were talking about the emotional part, we were talking about the physical part, you were talking about the nutritional part. I feel like we've covered a lot, unless there's other little things that you've thought of while we've been chatting.
Not really. I mean, it's worth mentioning, just because we're having a conversation about male fertility, that the conventional treatment for a lot of male infertility might include something like Clomid or clomiphene citrate. And I know I have friends who are doctors, naturopathic doctors, who work with that. It is, every guy has to decide for themselves how much they want to involve themselves with medication and whatnot, what they're taking into their bodies. But that is something that has moved the needles for a lot of guys, and it can, increase male fertility. And I think anytime you use pharmaceuticals, there is a payout on the back end. I don't know, what it might be with that one in particular, but yeah. So if you do have a doctor, if you do go to your doctor and talk about male fertility issues, you can read about Clomid or clomiphene citrate and at least get a little bit of an education there.
Gotcha. I genuinely did not even think about male infertility treatments because there's just so much discussion about women and infertility. I did not even think about like what they could do pharmaceutically for men in that regard.
Yep. There are things that they can do. HCG is another one. Okay. They'll often, in some cases, stack HCG with Clomid. So there are male infertility treatments within the conventional world. There are also like a number of supplements that you can find, and there's herbal supplements and those kinds of things. But I think really big picture, it's coming into alignment with the way that we're created to live. And I think that you're going to get the biggest long-term bang for your buck when you do that. And then anything else beyond that, maybe supplemental.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you for coming on and sharing your perspective and the things that you've changed and the things that you've faced and how it's positively impacted you guys and your family and your marriage. Because we really do want people to hear our conversations and leave feeling encouraged about how to approach things differently or try new things. So thank you for spending your time chatting with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
So yeah, we will share a little bit more about Chris in the show notes and where you can contact him if there's any men who are listening and want to just have a conversation with a dude and not two women who host the podcast. But yeah, we are so excited to keep having these conversations, and just we're open to feedback, or if you guys have questions, obviously feel free to reach out. All right. We will be back next week, guys.